Hi. So I wanted to just give a quick background on this episode. It's a little bit different. I tried this new thing on the podcast where I shared my screen and sort of had a back and forth session with my guest. And I know, podcasts are audio, not visual, but I think it still worked out well because we end up describing the thing we're looking at with really great detail so that the listener can visualize it. So you can probably more easily visualize it. So sharing it with you, it's new. It's this thing I haven't done before. I always like to try new things. So check out this episode and let me know what you think. If you're at an early stage startup, you're in the right place. We should be able to get our startups over the hump and without guessing or throwing spaghetti. Marketing is an important part of your go-to-market strategy, but you need to understand the why behind the what in order to get clarity, make the right decisions, and get results. Welcome to Season 4, where I'll be asking why in order to help bring more clarity to the messy world of early-stage startup marketing. Erin Balsa, welcome to the show. Erin is the founder of Haus, where she builds and executes content marketing strategies for B2B SaaS startups that sell complex, enterprise-ready solutions. Okay, so we know each other. We're both Nevadic advisors. That's kind of how we know each other. Although I don't know, I think I saw you on LinkedIn with your content before the Nevadic thing, but
yeah,
I'm not sure. I can't remember which came first, the chicken or the egg, right?
The Nevadic or the LinkedIn personal branding.
Yeah, that's right. I know we both have a similar business growth mindset because I just saw that in one of your newsletters, maybe the most recent one called Leading Thoughts, where you talked about your business. I love how you're just very open about it, like what's going well, what didn't go as well. And so in there, you mentioned your business, sort of how you approach work life. And there are three main things, and they match up with me pretty well. Like, does this activity bring in a significant amount of revenue? That's number one. Does this activity bring me a significant amount of joy? That's number two. And let's not forget, does this activity keep my kids healthy and happy? And I think those are really like the main ones, except you left out husband.
Clear, not every activity has to meet all three criteria. It's just something that, I get a lot of invites to podcasts. I get a lot of people who reach out and ask for my career advice. And I can't say yes to everything. So when I'm deciding what to say yes to, and of course, client work, right? So you get a lot of people who want you to do quick projects or maybe just like a writing gig. And I can't say yes to everything. So I try to ask myself, for the client work, typically I want it to drive revenue and joy. I don't want to make revenue at the expense of joy. If I feel like the client's going to be a huge pain in the ass, I'm not going to do it. And I have gotten pretty good at recognizing those red flags over time. And then when it comes to the other things, like the fun things like this, or the fun things like coaching people and helping people, I don't make money on these things, but I do it because it brings me joy. I like to give back. I like to deepen my professional relationships with folks that, have podcasts or other folks who are marketing leaders looking to transition to be a solopreneur and they want to pick my brain. And for those kinds of people, I typically do a pay what you can. I don't do everything for free. And it's not because I'm greedy, because some people, they're not marketing leaders. They might be a newbie or a freelancer. I offer pay what you can, even if it's $20, because they have skin in the game. They're actually going to show up to the call. They're going to come prepared with questions. They're not going to waste my time. And then I feel like I really am making the best use of my time and helping people and giving back. And then my kids are, of course, the driving force behind what I've been doing in my business over the last year plus, which is really trying to maximize my effective hourly rate while reducing and minimizing the hours I'm working. And, I'm not always trying to increase the revenue while also decreasing the hours. Sometimes I'm perfectly fine keeping the revenue steady or even letting the revenue drop a little bit, as long as I'm drastically decreasing my hours worked, because what I'm getting overall is a lot of life satisfaction, a lot of time with my kids. And
Yeah.
that's for me right now in my season of rest, the most important thing.
That is so important. And congratulations on baby number 3.
Thanks.
Child number 3, baby Julian. He is so cute. So
Yes.
you're a mom of 3, and we were just chatting how, like, sleep, what is that, right? Because when
What is
you
that?
got a new baby, and then you also moved overseas, you're in England. How do you like
Mhm.
England? Are you like in the outskirts of London? Where are you living?
Yeah, we're living in a city called Milton Keynes, which is a 35-minute train ride from London. We live about a 5-minute walk from the train station and city center, so it's super convenient. So I'll be able to pop down to London. I know there's a lot of marketing get-ups, gatherings that are going on, and I plan to go to as many as I can.
That's amazing. How long are you planning to stay there? Like forever? Are you never coming back to
We'll
the
see.
US? That's amazing.
Yeah, so I'm such a New England girl. I love it. I've lived overseas a few times. I've lived in different states a few times, but I'm a New England girl. So, my heart is with fall and pumpkins and crisp leaves and New England architecture. And I think that I will definitely get back there. But for now, we're here, and I am here to support my husband's career. And I'm being as
Yes.
flexible as I possibly can,
Yeah.
enjoying the ride.
Amazing. That's all you can do.
Yeah.
So, really, Erin, I really respect your content expertise. And so, when I actually started working on like a visual, like some kind of a diagram, because what I found that early stage startups approach their content strategy in all these different ways. It's all over the place. And I haven't seen any cool, easy, simple, easy to use visual diagrams that would help folks to build this out. Something easy,
Mhm.
something simple. Like there's a lot of great information out there. Like you need to have a unique point of view, and you need to have pillar content and chop up your pillar content, distribute snippets on marketing channels and blah, 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 stuff like that. I think it's helpful, but I'm a very visual person. And so when I work with my clients, I want to share something visual. I want to share the frameworks and approaches in a visual way. For example, I've got something called the MASS method, marketing as a system. And
Yes.
it's this systematic approach that I developed, and I wanted to make sure that it's available for all to see on my website. And so I built that out, and then I wrote an in-depth article on LinkedIn about it. And so it helps me, it helps my clients. And now I really just want to focus on content strategy. And I put together a content strategy canvas. And so I think I've never done this before, like share my screen on a podcast. But since I can post video, when I post this podcast episode, I think that's exactly what I'm going to do. So what do you think? Should we dive in?
100%. And if folks aren't able to look at the video footage or the photographs, we'll try to be as descriptive as possible while we're kind of looking at this framework.
All right. So I'm going to share my screen. And Erin, you tell me if you could see it. Can you see it?
I can see it. It's super small. So I'm
Okay.
wondering if there's some way we can zoom in. So
How's that?
I have
Is
my
that
glasses
better?
on, but still,
How's that?
that's much better.
Much better. Okay. So I
Mhm.
put together this content strategy canvas. That's what I'm calling it. And at the very top 2 main rows are the things that I consider to be really important. Original thinking. That's basically what is your unique point of view. Original research, which can come from internal proprietary information. It could come from your podcast, having high quality conversations, and a lot of them, right? That's data too. It could be a report. And so I put these 2 at the very top. I think they're the most important. And underneath those 2 rows, I put 4 other buckets. So the first one is ideas and questions that come from customers and prospects. The second bucket is buyer goals or buyer motivations. And that actually comes from John Bonini. I would say this is kind of tied to like how people think about top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel content, except it's not company focused, it's more buyer focused. So
Mhm.
motivations that a buyer has, like inspiration, education, right?
Mhm.
Give me a recommendation. Tell me how to execution. Tell me how to execute on something. So, those are the main buyer goals. The third bucket is marketing channels, which I go through this with my clients. We prioritize. There are so many things you could be doing, so many channels you could be working within, but what are the top one or two that you can focus on? And finally, the content formats. So different formats across those channels, because it could be written, could be audio, could be video, could be infographic,
Mm-hmm.
GIF. Like there are tons of formats, right?
Yeah, for
Decks,
sure.
carousels, depending on what channel we're talking about. So
I feel like it's like a Forrest Gump moment. We're like shrimp gumbo, shrimp
yeah.
sandwiches, shrimp po' boys.
Yes. So I tried to keep it simple, Erin. And then, of course, you worked on something. This took me I'm like, okay, I'm going to talk to people. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to put this together. And of course, you whipped something up in 20 minutes this morning or
Right before
today,
this call,
right
20
before
minutes
this
ago. And
call.
I'm like, man, I can
Yeah.
do this. I can get this on paper so we can have something also similarly scrappy and hand drawn to kind of like riff off of with each other. I thought that would be kind of fun.
That's awesome. Did you look at this drawing? You did, right? You saw
Yeah,
mine
I
and you
looked
were
at it
like,
last night.
she's
Hmm.
missing a ton of stuff, right? So let's
No,
talk.
no, no, no. So first reaction is like it's super simple, but I understand why because you are working as like a fractional like head of marketing, right? So
Yes,
you're really broad. Content's not your number one priority main focus. It's something you do in a larger ecosystem of all these really important things you're doing like
that's
messaging
right.
and positioning and this and that.
That's right.
And, maybe some of the companies you're working with, maybe they don't have a content team or a ton of capacity to really understand. I know that certain fractional heads of marketing like yourself might work with organizations that are so early they don't have a marketing team yet. So they are trying to communicate this with the CEO, the founder, people who don't have a deep background in marketing. So I think in a lot of ways, keeping it as simple as possible is really good when you're communicating with any senior executive and anyone who doesn't have like a deep background in marketing. Whereas mine is a little more in the weeds, even though I tried to simplify it as much as I could, because I typically work with companies who they don't have a content team, but they want to build one. They want to build their content marketing acumen, and I'm working with a marketing leader. So someone that gets content, they might not get it to the same depth that I get it because I've been working in content for 12 years, but they are going to understand these different concepts. And that's why they're a little bit more in depth. But since I wanted to keep this as, podcast friendly as possible, I really stripped it down to something that I think is kind of scrappy.
Great. We
Yeah,
love
let's see what you
Scrappy.
think. Yeah.
So talk me through it, because I'm looking at it, I'm sharing it. And do I start at the top? I don't start at the
Start at
middle,
the top.
right? Start at the top.
No, no. So here's the thing about content strategy. It can be in so many different formats. In the past, I've played around with formats. I've tried different things with different teams, different companies. So at the most simple, a deck is really easy. You can have a couple slides. Those are really good for presenting at, marketing meetings, content team meetings. Really good if you're trying to communicate just the real need to know information to the higher ups. Now, if you are going to want to get more in the weeds, I've even experimented with using tools like Mural and Miro, and you can really like zoom in, zoom out. You can link out. I always have like a nice appendix at the end of my content strategy, which links out to any kind of document anyone would ever need access to produce content. I think it all belongs housed in the central strategy. So here, what you're looking at is just top to bottom. It doesn't mean that I'm going to be using a Google Doc and I'm going to be scrolling down. This might be a deck. It might be something else that your team prefers to use. It could be in Notion. Like it really honestly doesn't matter the format. It's whatever fits the culture of your organization and the people who are going to be looking at this and using this. So let's pretend that we're looking at this in a deck. So the first slide I always like to do is the content team's mission. This is something I started doing when I was back at the Predictive Index, where I became really kind of passionate about mission and vision. And I got to see really how important mission and vision is, not only at the organization level, but at the team level. And it's really important for the content team and the people doing the work every day to feel like they're contributing to the larger mission of the organization. They're not just like wasting their day looking at the clock, writing these pointless blogs because someone told them to, and they just got to hit word count. No, they need to understand that they're actually doing really important work. And more B2B organizations are understanding the value of good content, right? So the mission would be something that is to really, number one, first and foremost, excite the people doing the work, let them know that they are contributing to the organization's success and vision. And number two, just show the senior leadership that you're aligned. You're not just some tactical function who's like making pretty words in the blog. You're actually thinking strategically. So a mission, I like to keep it broad. And what that means is you're probably going to have some few different personas. You want the mission to be something that any persona can align with. So like back when I worked at my last company, for example, the mission would be we want to help business leaders solve their problems with talent optimization. And it didn't matter if we were talking to an executive leader or an HR manager or any of the different personas we spoke to, that was relevant because they were all facing business problems and we could help them solve those problems with a new approach by using this discipline of talent optimization. So that is where I like to begin.
Amazing.
Any
Okay.
questions on that?
No,
Is that something
that makes sense. You need a mission. Like, why do we exist? I actually do this in the marketing foundation deck when I'm putting together everything related to why do we exist? Who are we for? What are we building for them? And the why do we exist is one of the really like cornerstones because everything, if you're not excited about existing, then nothing else matters. The rest of it doesn't, what you're building, who you're for, the problem you're solving, right? Why you exist, like the mission, the vision, I think that ties in with the work that I do as well. So personas make sense, right? You've got your people with the pocketbook, with the wallet. You've got your champions. You've got your, there's like a lot of people in the ecosystem. And so I'm looking at this and I'm seeing, okay, you've got your different personas. 5% are in market, maybe even 2% are in market, honestly, right? And most people are not in market. And so now we're starting to think about, okay, keep going into the third row. What are we looking at here?
Let me just dive back into personas just to explain a little bit more to the listeners. So what I have here is 3 circles, A, B, and C. Those are, let's say you have 5 personas. I don't know. Let's pretend we have 3 today. So one is, leader Laura, who's an executive. One is, I don't know, someone who works in human resources. And let's say C is something else. So what I have here with which Anna was just talking about, it really stems from the fact that I work with sales-led companies. So I'm not just trying to get a huge volume of traffic to the site so that I can get as many people as possible into a free trial so that some of them can convert to paid users. That's not the kind of businesses I work with. I work with companies that have a sales team. So they're thinking a lot about how are we going to deal plan? What are going to be the different folks at the table? We're going to have a long buying cycle, a large buying team. We're going to have to identify quickly who are the people at the table, who's the DMs, who's the signers, who's going to be a catalyst that's going to move the deal forward, who's going to be a detractor. So a lot of times I think, and I 100% used to think from a total marketing lens, like what do our, marketing created buyer personas say? And as I've evolved and grown and learned and spent more time working with sales-led companies, I started to understand the value in really fleshing out your personas with the kind of personas that the sales team is talking about. They're not talking about Talent Tommy and Leader Laura. They are talking about actual personas that they see every day. And the tough thing is, a lot of times these personas change. You don't always get to predict who's going to be invited to a call. So really trying to make it as easy as possible for the sales team from the get-go by having Ashley Foss says a lot about the content playground. And I really like that visual because it just goes to show it's not a clear funnel. You need to have a variety of content that's going to appeal to all different people. If you're not in market, I'm doing my best to make you become an evangelist because you might not buy, not now, not ever, but you're going to hopefully refer a friend or a colleague who is in market to buy.
I just
and
wanted
then the rest of the people,
I just wanted to quickly say that I think ties back to the buyer goals and motivations and hitting people at for different reasons. Like what's their motivation? They might just want to be inspired, right? Okay. They're not looking to execute anything. They're just looking to get some inspiration or see some examples or look for some recommendations, right? So I think that ties well into that.
And the inspire piece is actually really important with the more senior people sometimes. And maybe not talking about the CMO or a C-suite executive, but some more senior people who have been in it 10, 15 years. they know the basics. They're not looking to get educated necessarily always. Sometimes they are just looking to get inspired to think differently, think bigger. So I really can't agree with you more there.
Wonderful. Okay, let's go into I want to make sure we have time for everything. So let's go into the third row where you talk
Yeah.
about inputs, drive
Goals.
content goals. Yeah.
Yeah. So third slide or section of your document would be content goals. Again, it's nothing, revolutionary. You're going to kind of have a label for each one. You might have, for example, sales enablement might be a goal of mine. I'm wanting to enable the sales team. Why? Well, the inputs are what help me to create my goals. So if the GTM team has a goal to decrease sales cycles by 20% year over year, okay, so how the hell are they going to do that? How am I going to help them? So that would be some things that are defining that goal or helping me to come up with that goal. And then, of course, the business objectives. So if the business is looking to grow their customer base, okay, cool. So how are they going to do that? What's their key objective and how are they going to get there? Oh, they want people to adopt this new category. Okay, cool. So I know that in my content goals, I'm going to be trying to grow demand by putting out some thought leadership, really talking about this interesting take on the market and really putting out this interesting content that's going to help, hopefully, fuel the business objectives, fuel the GTM goals.
Awesome. Yeah. Creating a new category. That's a lot of educational content. I feel like, what is this
Yeah,
category? Why does it matter? Why should I care? Yeah.
for
I've had a
sure.
lot of folks on the podcast, just had Island on the podcast, and Ari Yablik talked about how they spent a lot of time focusing on that education piece and not at all on the product side, actually, because the education
Mhm.
was way more important. It's always fascinating to me.
Sure.
All right. If we covered the third section, let's go to the last one.
Yeah. So the next piece here, people talk about pillars. I also work in pillars. So to start there, pillars for me have to be grounded in the product to different extents. So there's always a product tie in. I'm not going to have a pillar that is like seltzer water. I'm holding a can of seltzer water. I love it. I drink a crap ton of seltzer water, but I'm not going to have, a podcast about seltzer water if I'm not selling anything to do with water or nutrition or anything like that. So, yes, the pillars are not going to be like everything is like use this kind of tool because that's product led content. Not everything has to be that, but it has to map back to the product. So, if I'm selling a sales enablement tool, I'm going to talk about sales productivity, sales coaching, sales onboarding. So those are going to drive my content pillars. Another way I think about pillars for folks that maybe aren't as in the weeds with this stuff as I am, you can think a lot about like a hub and spoke strategy. So picture like a wheel, an old fashioned wheel. In the middle is the most broad topic that you can envision. So sales, team, productivity. And then the spokes are all the different subtopics. Like, what else could you talk about that's interesting and that belongs in that category? And if you're, using, or if you're putting this content on your website, that can help you build some topical authority by, connecting the pages and linking the pages to each other. But it's also good just to have these pillars because when you're starting again with the mission, the goals, the pillars, you have consistency. And that's a problem I see a lot with early stage startups, especially when they're letting anyone in the company guest blog. We need someone to write the blog. We need to blog every day. We don't know why, but we think we need to. We have a lot of smart people here at the company. Hey, so-and-so, SME, can you write a blog? Sure. And then you have a blog on something that's completely off base. So I think the pillars are really, really important. Doesn't mean you can never write something different. No. I mean, if you have a cute idea and you want to experiment, for sure, just make sure that the bulk of what you do kind of maps back to one of your pillars, which is derivative of the product. And then I also like to have an annual theme. Again, it's all going to be in line with what you were trying to do. So, for example, I think 1 year back at PI, it really was just pulled from like what we said all the time. It's no secret. It's all over the website. We would say, every business problem is people problem. So yeah, you have business problems. Yeah, you have turnover. Yeah, you have this and you think it's a business problem, but it's a people problem. And that was kind of the heart of, a theme for a year. And then in each of those pillars, you're going to be kind of digging into that and getting to the heart of that.
That makes a lot of sense. And then you did include underneath the pillars and the getting into the specifics now, hub and spoke model that you just talked about. original thinking, original research, and then channels, it looks like leading thoughts and then
Mm-hmm.
channels. So there are some similarities, but I think what I'm missing in mine is kind of like the top strategic stuff, because I just jump right in to original research, original
Mm-hmm.
thinking, which is really important. And you probably agree as well, right?
Oh, yeah.
All the stuff I included is important, but starting with the mission, starting with personas, which early stage startups typically have way less than larger
Mm-hmm.
companies that enterprise sales led companies that you work with, or companies that sell into enterprise, sorry. And then I think one thing that I will do is include this idea of like, we need to make sure that it ties back to our business objectives and go to market goals. Like, content doesn't just stand on its own, right? It's not
Mm-hmm.
like we're doing this content thing over here, guys, and forget about how it actually impacts the business. No, it actually should. And it should stem from your business objectives. So
Mm-hmm.
that was super helpful. I'm going to stop the share and come back to our beautiful faces. And it's the end of our time. I loved it. This is giving me like more to think about for my content strategy canvas. So thank you, Erin. I didn't have time to answer any question from you, but if you want to ask, I can do a bonus episode on it. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, I would say, oh gosh, so many angles. I was thinking about what I could ask you last night. I would love to know, what is the, number one improvement area that you see time and time again when you work with new startups? What's the one kind of overarching, I hate to say mistakes, let's focus on the positives, improvement area? Where could these companies improve and where should they start?
It's like talking to our kids. That's not a mistake. That's an improvement area.
Yes.
You didn't fail. It's opportunity.
Yes.
I love that positive language. All right. Wonderful question. Erin, thank you for spending time with me today. You're awesome, especially, all the way overseas in England. I appreciate you. If anybody wants to find Erin, you can do so on LinkedIn. Follow her, Erin Balsa. Check out our website, House of Bold. House is spelled Haus. I'll include that link in the show notes. And subscribe to her newsletter. It's called Leading Thoughts. So, Erin, thank you. I had a blast. Thanks again.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to this weekly episode of Modern Startup Marketing. New episodes are dropping weekly, so make sure you're following wherever you get your podcasts. You can find me on LinkedIn, search for Anna Furmanov. Visit my website to learn more about how I help early stage startups. Go to furmanovmarketing.com. And don't forget to leave a review if you're loving the show.